Good afternoon, Washington, D.C. This is Tony Browder here with you on another edition of the Browder File Show. I'm very happy today for a variety of reasons. I'm happy because WPFW had a pledge week and on-air pledge drive last week, and their goal for the week was $95,000. Well, I'm happy to say that they not only made that goal, they exceeded their goal. The station made a total of $98,424.21. That's 103.6% of their goal. And we've reached this goal because of you, because you cared enough to dig down a little bit deeper and to say, yes, this station matters. What we're doing matters. And I'm glad to say that my show last week contributed its fair share to the station exceeding its goal. My goal last Wednesday was $500. And if you notice, if you recall last week, I didn't give a running tally for last week's show because I just knew that I was going to make or exceed my goal. I just put it out there. I didn't want to know the numbers. I just knew that those of you all who've been listening to the show for the last 57 weeks and said that you appreciate the information that we've been bringing to you regularly would step up and make sure that I would make my goal. Well, I'm happy to say that not only did I make my goal, but I exceeded my goal. We received $793 on air via telephone and the web, and then an additional $282.33 via Cash App pledges, making a total of $1,021.33. So I exceeded my goal, and I'm very happy to say that. We got pledges from 23 people, and I want to take a moment now to acknowledge those people whose names I have and thank you personally from the top, from the middle, from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank Mia of Washington, D.C., Rufus Stevenson of Washington, D.C. He was being honored for his work addressing churches and the Kennedy Center and other facilities throughout D.C. Rufus is being honored. Thank you, brother, for your contribution. I want to acknowledge Kim Savoy of Gaithersburg, John of Washington, D.C., William of Springfield, Virginia, Antonio Leon of Bowie, Maryland, Alice Winch. I want to thank an assortment of friends from Fort Belvoir, Virginia, Bowling Green, Virginia, Woodbridge, Virginia, Chantilly, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Suitland, Maryland. And there are others whose names I don't have, but I want to thank you, thank you, thank you for coming through and doing what I knew you all would do. I've got faith in you. So as I mentioned last week was my last pledge drive. This show is my next to last show. I'm doing my last show next week, and I don't have a guest plan for next week. You all are going to be my guests. I'm going to open the phone lines and give you all an opportunity to just let me know what's on your mind. Let me know how much you've enjoyed the show. Let me know how much you enjoyed this past year and what you have prepared for next year. So you all will be my guests next week as a token of appreciation. I also want to acknowledge as we talk about you all stepping up and showing your love for WPFW. I want to give a shout out to Brother Akbar, uh, whose show African Deep Thought ran last Monday during the pledge drive, and his goal was $1,200. He reached his goal, exceeded it by $2 and no 200 and no five. He exceeded it. Well, he exceeded his goal. Let me not even worry about the numbers, but he did so well that his show was rebroadcast the next day, and he was able to bring in even more money on the second day. So hurrah to Brother Kaba, hurrah to WPFW, big hurrah to you for your continued support. So this past Sunday, as you all have probably heard listening to some of the other programmers, WPFW had its staff and programmers holiday gathering. And it was a wonderful opportunity to see folk. I only get to see, some folk only get to see once a year and others on other occasions. But it was good to share the holiday spirit with folk who are committed to bringing you messages of peace and information and empowerment. I want to do a special shout out to Verna Avery Brown, who wrote this incredible song in honor of the interim general manager, Miyuki Williams. It was kind of a surprise party for Miyuki as well, being that she just had a birthday. And everybody pulled it off. The gang pulled it off. It was a surprise. But Verna wrote this song, which we don't know who the mystery singer was, but it was a bad song. And I hope that Miyuki plays it for you all on her show next week. And if anybody ever wants to, comes to me about doing a ballad for Tony Browder, I want to direct you to Verna Avery to have her write that ballad because Sister's bad. Sister's incredible. Beautiful song, beautiful song. I want to give a birthday shout out today to Sandy Ratley. Sandy, who does so many different things for so many people throughout the community. Happy birthday, Sandy. And birthday to Brother Cody. Cody V. He had a birthday this past weekend. Birthdays are all around. My grandmother has her birthday next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, yeah, I'll be able to give my grandmother a birthday shout out next week. So one of the promises I made to you all last week was that if I met or exceeded my goal, I would do a program today where I would discuss the influences, the African influences on Christianity and Christmas on today's show. So since I not only exceeded my goal and was on Kaba's show, which repeated twice last week, and he exceeded his goal, rather than just deconstruct Christianity and Christmas, I want to talk about enhancing the real reason for the season. I want to take a different track and share information with you that comes from the heart and talk about this season and the real reason for the season and how we can get it back from the intentions for which it was hijacked. And to frame my discussion today, I want to reference three critical scenes from three movies that are worth noting. Those who know me know that I like dissecting movies, I like dissecting songs, and I want to dissect three films today. The first film is The Wizard of Oz, the original Wizard of Oz, which came out in 1939. The second film is Wicked, which came out in the theaters last year in 2004. And the third film is Harriet, the film on Harriet Tubman, which came out in 2019. There is a thread that runs through all of these films. So let me begin with The Wizard of Oz. Growing up as a child in Chicago, The Wizard of Oz would come on at least twice a year. So I grew up watching that film as a child. And as I watched it each year I was a little bit older. I was a bit more mature. I had better understanding of myself and the world in which I was living. And I began to notice things in the film that I hadn't noticed the previous year. So, there's some basic things in The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy goes to the Emerald City. Dorothy takes the yellow brick road. And one of the subtexts in the original story written by L. Frank Baum is that the story is a metaphor for the world in which we live. It's a metaphor for industrialists. It's a metaphor for big business. It's a metaphor for how businesses control the world. And the references to the yellow brick road, gold, the references for the yellow brick road, the references for the poppy field where everybody fell asleep. The lion fell asleep and Dorothy fell asleep and Toto fell asleep, was about drugs, was about heroin. So the big story was how people run the world by mining ores from the earth, by extracting drugs from the earth, and people are manipulated. But the main takeaway that I want to leave with you all with regards to my analysis of The Wizard of Oz is that Dorothy and Toto and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion met the wizard, and he promised to give them what they were asking for. Dorothy wanted to go home. The Tin Man wanted a heart. The Lion wanted courage. And who was the other guy? The Scarecrow wanted brains. And what they realized when they came back after they killed the Wicked Witch of the West, what they realized is that the wizard was a hustler. The wizard was a con man. The wizard was a liar, right? And he conned them and gave what the the Tin Man a medallion in the shape of a heart. He gave the Cowardly Lion a medal, which indicated his courage. He gave the Scarecrow a diploma. And so all of a sudden, they were the things that they always were. But because they had a piece of paper, something material, they believed it. And since he couldn't just hustle Dorothy back home, he was going to take her back in his balloon. But we know how that ended. And what that story told me is that the wizard was a liar, and he conned everybody in Oz. Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Lion, the Scarecrow, they all discovered that he was a liar. And rather than expose his lies to the people of Oz, they decided to maintain the lie. So the takeaway from me is that we're faced with opportunities where we discover profound truths, truths that may be so shocking and so revealing that they may frighten people that we care about. And sometimes we withhold those truths because we're afraid to hurt somebody's feelings. Well, I'm not with that. You know, truth will set you free. And you have to be willing, you have to be strong enough and courageous enough to speak the truth and help people deal with reality. That's the important thing. So we saw at the end of the film, the wizard is gone, he's floated off in his balloon, and Dorothy is left. So Glinda, the good witch, comes back, and she tells Dorothy, well, you know, Dorothy, you could have gone home all the time. You got the ruby slippers. And all you got to do is click your heels 3 times and say, there's no place like home, there's no place like home, there's no place like home. And you go back home. And so the Dorothy said, well, look, witch, you let me risk my life and my friend's life. Why didn't you tell me? And Glinda said, well, hey, if I told you, you wouldn't have believed me. So that's another lesson from the story. Sometimes the truth is so hard for some people to hear that they got to go through rough times and difficult times because they aren't willing to understand the truth that's right at the bottom of their feet. So we do that ourselves. We want to believe that we are powerless. And so we miss out on opportunities to manifest the power that we've always had inside of us. That's the takeaway from the original Wizard of Oz. If you look at Wicked, the film Wicked. I never saw the play. And the film is interesting. The film is entertaining. But there was one takeaway line in the film Wizard that really struck me. And the film, for me, the film really takes off. I'm not that fond of musicals, but the film really takes out when they go to Oz and they meet the Wiz. And the Wiz, Jeffrey Goldblum played an incredible Wiz. The Wiz is a hell of a con man, a hell of a hustler. And the takeaway line from that film is the best way to bring folk together is to give them a real good enemy. And that's when they turn on Elphaba. That's when they made her the enemy and convinced everybody in the kingdom, right? The kingdom of fools, the kingdom of people who were manipulated, that the sister with the good heart, with the power, was the real evil person. And then we get to the film Harriet, which is a biopic about Harriet Tubman that came out in 2019. And Harriet starred the sister who is one of the stars in Wicked, Cynthia Erivo. Cynthia Erivo is a talented actress, really good, really talented. And there's a scene in the opening of Harriet that initially ticked me off. But as I continued to watch the film, I realized what the writers of the film were doing. The film opens with enslaved Africans on the eastern shore of Maryland in Dorchester County standing around in front of their master's porch on a Sunday. And there was a preacher, a black preacher, standing on the steps of the porch giving the sermon for the day to the enslaved Africans. And the essence of his sermon was, slaves, obey your master. And I saw that scene and it ticked me off. It ticked me off because what I realized that scene was taken from a book that Reverend Willie Wilson turned me on to a number of years ago. The book is called The Religious Instruction for the Negro. It was a book written by a white pastor in Georgia that was designed specifically to introduce enslaved Africans to the Bible. Because prior to the early 19th century, European enslavers would not allow Africans, enslaved Africans, to become Christians because we did not have a soul. That was a lie that Pope Eugenius IV wrote in his papal bull in order for the Roman Catholic Church to justify the wholesale theft, selling, and enslavement of over 50 million African men, women, and children. We did not have souls. But after Nat Turner's rebellion, after the Haitian Revolution, white enslavers in the South decided that they needed to find a way to keep us docile. And so they decided that they would introduce us to Christianity. And this man by the name of Reverend C.C. Jones. And I encourage you all to don't just listen to me, to take notes and to follow up on some research so that you can internalize this information for yourself. You can go online and download a copy of The Religious Instruction for the Negro by Reverend C.C. Jones. In that book, he outlines passages from the Bible that validate slavery and specifically tell slaves to obey their masters. So in the opening scene in Harriet, that's what they showed us. And it ticked me off. And it wasn't until Sister Harriet decided that she was going to leave. She was going to get up out of that place, out of that hellhole on earth. She went and told her father she was leaving. And her father said, "Go see the preacher." She said, "What? Go see the preacher?" "Yes, go see the preacher." And Harriet went to see the preacher. And what we found out is that the preacher was working for the master during the day on Sundays and was working for the masses in the evening. He was part of the Underground Railroad, and he used the church as a cover to do work to liberate his people, told Harriet where she needed to go, told her what she needed to do to get to her freedom. And so these issues are important because what I want us to think about, what I want us to understand is that there were three types of enslaved Africans here in the United States of America. There was the enslaved who believed that they deserved to be enslaved. And so they didn't resist. They accepted the fact that they were born in sin. They accepted the fact that they would get the reward in the great by and by. And they did everything that they were told to do to please their masters. And then there were those enslaved Africans who knew enslavement was wrong, but they lacked the ability to free themselves. Why? Because the shackles were on their brains. They couldn't read. They couldn't write. They didn't know who they were before their world was turned upside down. So they accepted the lie that was imposed upon them by their enslavers and by the church. They knew something was wrong, but they didn't know how to correct the error. And then there was a third type of enslaved person. The enslaved who said, "I'm either going to be free or I'm going to die. I'm not going to accept this." That's who Harriet was. And she overcame her fear of death. She overcame her fear of not knowing where she was going to go to find her freedom. She knew that she was going to be free, and she was willing to risk her life to gain that freedom. We know the story. She freed herself, and then she came back 19 times to free her family, everyone in her family except her sister, and to free hundreds of other Africans. And as Sister Harriet Tubman said toward the end of her life, she freed hundreds of slaves, but could have freed thousands more if only they had known that they were slaves. So they were enslaved Africans who believed that enslavement was their fate because they bought into the lies that were imposed upon them by so-called Christians. And so it begs the question, we need to really understand as people of African ancestry, what is this religion? How was it given to us? Why was it given to us? And how does it impact us today? So the greatest gift you could ever have during this season of gift giving is the gift of knowledge. Giving books, reading books, having discussions about books you read are really what we should be doing for ourselves and our families and our loved ones this season. I've always said that a book is the only gift that you can open again and again and again. A book is a gift that you can share with everybody for the rest of your life. You'll never outgrow it. It will always be a part of you, and what you read changes you on a cellular level. And reading is so important that enslavers here in the United States, the enslavers who wrote the Declaration of Independence, the enslavers who wrote the U.S. Constitution, the enslavers who were presidents of the United States, made it illegal for enslaved Africans to read or write because they understood the power of reading. They understood the power of knowledge. Knowledge will set you free. Knowledge is not an evil thing. So this idea of man and woman being kicked out of paradise because they sought knowledge, that's propaganda. It's propaganda. And once you gain the proper knowledge, you'll see the propaganda for what it is. It's important to understand, and I can't overstate this fact. It's important to understand that if you look at religious systems and spiritual systems of indigenous people outside of the United States, outside of Europe, you will find that none of these religious systems have a thing such as original sin. There's no such thing as original sin. There's no concept that you are separated from your creator and that you sin against him, and so you were punished. That is a foreign concept that has no basis in any spiritual reality whatsoever. And the more you accept that lie, that misinterpretation, the more you will be controlled by that lie. So it's about being free. And so it's about being able to read. It's about being able to reason. James Madison, the fourth president of the United States, James Madison, the author of the U.S. Constitution, James Madison, whose building of the Library of Congress is right up on Capitol Hill. And at the entrance to the James Madison building at the Library of Congress is an inscription on the left side of the entrance. And it says, "Knowledge will forever govern ignorance. And the people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power of knowledge." So knowledge, you gain knowledge from reading, you gain knowledge from reasoning, you gain knowledge from understanding. And so Europeans, in order to ensure that their enslaved Africans would remain enslaved to them, had to separate us from knowledge of self and to convince us to believe the lie that we were born in sin and that we had no souls. So it's knowledge of your true history. It's knowledge of your ancestors that will free you. And so today I want to focus on giving you the gift of knowledge. I want to share with you certain passages from certain books that I want you to not just read, books that I want you to study, books that I want you to internalize. And if you're willing, or after you've mastered the topic, share what you know with others so that they can free themselves. And in the sharing process, just be clear, just as during enslavement times, there were some folk who don't want to be free. And if you don't want to be free, that's all right. That's your choice. Do not try to impose knowledge and information on folk or freedom on people who don't want to be free. You don't have that right. Everybody's entitled to the right to be wrong. Everybody's entitled to the right to be ignorant. And if that's your choice, God bless you and keep it moving. And when I talk about freedom, I mean freedom in the literal sense of the word, freeing your dome, freeing your mind. So I want to share with you 4 books that I encourage you all to read and study and share this information with those you love. The first piece is not really a book, it's a magazine. It's a magazine article that I was made aware of in March of 2002 when I was listening to Ambrose Lane Sr. on WPFW. And Ambrose was talking about a new Torah that had recently been published by a group of conservative Jews out of LA. That Torah was called Et Hayom, or the Tree of Life. And it kind of unpacked stories from the Torah or the Old Testament that most Christians have no knowledge of whatsoever. The truth will set you free. And there was an article in the March 2002 edition of Harper's magazine. The article was titled, "False Testament, Archaeology Refutes the Bible's Claim to History." It was written by Daniel Lazare. Now, Ambrose talked about this and recited passages from this article. I went out, got a copy of the magazine, read the article thoroughly, went out and purchased a copy of Et Hayom. The Tree of Life. That book costs $200. I mean, this is my investment in getting information that's going to help me, and as it helps me, it's going to help me to help others. But there's a passage, one paragraph that I want to share with you that is the essence of this story, that is the essence of this truth. Again, the title of the article is False Testament, not New Testament or Old Testament, but False Testament. Written by a man who, judging by his name, is obviously a Jewish writer. The subtitle of the article is Archaeology Refutes the Bible's Claim to History. There's a passage here that says, Abraham, Isaac, and other tribal founders depicted in the book of Genesis were no more real than the heroes of Greek or Norse mythology. He said it, that these were fables, these were myths. He goes on to say that rather than a chronicle of genuine events, the history that Genesis sets forth is an artificial construct, a narrative framework created long after the facts in order to link together a series of unconnected folk tales like pearls on a string. Now, look, I had an opportunity to travel to Israel with Reverend Willie Wilson in 2000. And I can tell you this, everywhere we went with our guides, they told us as we went to historical sites, this is where they say such and such a thing occurred. This is where we believe that such and such an event happened. There is no place, and he referenced this several times, there is no place anywhere in Israel where the stories of the Old Testament could be validated. There's no archaeological evidence. As a matter of fact, we went to the site where Jacob blew his horn and the walls came tumbling down. Well, the archaeological evidence shows that at the time of Jacob's lifetime, that wall would have been no more than 3 feet high. It really wasn't a wall. And so what I'm saying, based on what I know, not what I believe, not what I think, but based on what I know. And what I know is based on what I've read and what I've seen as a result of my travels. I don't just sit down and read a book and say, oh, this is interesting. I go to the places referenced in the books that I've read so I can see for myself, so I can walk those paths and determine how truthful this information is. I've been to Israel. I've been to Rome several times. I've been to the Vatican. And I can tell you, baby, what we've been taught, what we've been told is not true. And so it's important to go to sources that will enlighten and empower us. Naeem Akbar has a book on natural psychology, where he lays out these parallels between the 3 references for the 3 states of slave consciousness. Naeem uses Arabic or Islamic terms, and I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago and discussed this book with him. And I just recently reread it, and it validated many things that I was feeling. And Naeem said that that book has been out of circulation since the 1990s. And he says he wishes now that when he had written that book, and I think he first wrote it in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, he says now that he wished he hadn't used Islamic references. He wishes that he would have used terminology that was more familiar with the African American experience. And I co-sign that because we need to understand our history, our culture, our spirituality from our own perspective. The third book I want to reference is John Jackson's Introduction to African Civilization. As a matter of fact, there's 2 John Jackson books that I would highly recommend for anyone who's interested in wanting to know more about themselves, history, religion, and African spirituality. Introduction to African Civilization was my Bible. It's one of my favorite books. John Jackson also wrote Christianity Before Christ. Christianity Before Christ, because the essence of what we know as Christianity originated in other parts of the world thousands of years before the birth of Christ. And he lays out in Introduction to African Civilization the framework for what we now know is Christmas, right? Christmas occurs on December the 25th. We're told that December the 25th is the birth of Jesus Christ. Let me say here that you're listening to WPFW. The time is 5:30. You're listening specifically to the Browder File Show here on WPFW. And I thank you all for tuning in. and let me establish this foundation. We're told that December the 25th is the birth of Jesus Christ. So let me share this with you. I've known dozens of ministers. I have these same conversations with ministers, and they will agree off the record. They know pretty much what I am sharing with you now, and we have conversations. They come to me for information, and that no one knows the birthday to Jesus. No one knows the day he was born. No one knows the day he died. Why? Because those dates were made up. And folk who are theologians, folk who are who study the text know that to be a fact. So how did December the 25th come to be accepted as the birthday of Jesus the Christ? Well, it's because, as John Jackson pointed out in his book, Introduction to African Civilization, we're going through the days of the solstice right now. December the 21st, December 22nd, December 23rd, and December 24th. Solstice means the sun is still. And so for those 4 days, the length of the day does not increase nor decrease by 4 days. The earth reaches its maximum axial tilt in the northern hemisphere and begins to right itself. And it takes it 4 days to go through this process. On that 5th day, the length of the day increases by 1 minute per day. And the days then get gradually longer, 1 minute per day, until we reach the spring equinox, March 21st and March 22nd, where we have 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of nighttime. And so in ancient times, 7,000 years ago, watchers of the skies, the scientists, the astronomers, if you will, noticed this phenomena. And so on the 5th day, the first day after the solstice, the day that what we now refer to as December the 25th, the days lengthened by 1 day. And so it was said, so it was recorded that the sun was born, the sun was born. The sun, as anyone who studies comparative religions knows, is one of the oldest symbols for the Creator, one of the oldest symbols for God. And so it was said on December the 25th, the sun was born. After the Nicene Council in 2025, these Christian scholars came together and accepted that date as the date for the birth of Jesus the Christ. That date was created hundreds of years after the supposed birth of Jesus the Christ. Why? Because thousands of people, millions of people all over the world were already celebrating the birth of the sun on December the 25th. Now, here's the other part of John Jackson's story that really rocked my soul when I read it. I mean, it blew my mind and freed my mind. He said, at the time of the solstice, at the time when the sun is born, if you look out to the southeast, you'll see on the horizon the constellation that we now know as Orion. And Orion is comprised of 7 stars. There are 3 distinct stars that comprise the belt of Orion. They form a diagonal line pointing downward. Those 3 stars are the belt of Orion. And so what I'm encouraging you all to do during this time of year is to go outside, look to the south after sunset, and you'll see the constellation of Orion. You'll see the 7 stars that comprise this figure. You see the 3 stars in the belt of Orion. In ancient times, those 3 stars were known as the 3 wise men or the 3 kings. Those 3 stars point to the brightest object in our nighttime sky, and that is the star that we know as Sirius. In ancient times, Sirius was known, well, in contemporary times, Sirius is known as the Eastern Star, right? The star that rises in the east. And so, as this biblical narrative associated with the story of the birth of Jesus Christ was constructed, they took this astronomical story and gave it a new meaning. So the 3 stars in the belt of Orion became known as the 3 wise men, or the 3 kings who brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to the Christ child in the manger in Bethlehem. Now, that star in the east, they followed that star in the east, right? Get this, get the metaphor now, get the symbolism, because it's all there. You just need to understand what you see, you need to understand what others never wanted you to know. The three stars represent the three wise men or the three kings, and they lead to the star in the east. And so John Jackson lays out in Introduction to African Civilization that at the time that Orion was in the nighttime sky, the constellation of Virgo the Virgin was just rising above the horizon. It was partially bisected at the waist. And so it was said that the sun on this day, December the 25th, was born of a virgin on December the 25th, right? And in the same nighttime sky, you'll see another constellation that was known as the Stable of Aegeus. And so as this story was being reconstructed, being manufactured and reconstructed in order to give to an entire group of people as a new narrative to save their souls, it was said that the Son of God, the Son of the Son, was born of a virgin in a stable. And wise men brought him gifts, following the star that rose in the east. Look, this may be hard for some people to understand. This will be liberating for others. What I want you all to do is not just take my word for this. I want you to read. I want you to study. I want you to understand what our enslavers never wanted us to know. I want you to also, the fourth book I want to reference is a book written by Asa Hilliard, my Jagda, my brother. Asa Hilliard wrote a book. My favorite book of his is titled SABA, S-B-A, The Reawakening of the African Mind. Asa Hilliard is a educational psychologist, is a brilliant scholar, a Kemetic scholar. He understood how people of African ancestry had been brainwashed. And he laid out in Saba, this incredible book, what we can do, what we must do in order to liberate our African minds. We have to begin to understand how African history, African culture, and African spiritual systems have been appropriated and used by others in order to lift themselves out of darkness, and then inverted when we were told that Africa made no contributions to culture and civilization whatsoever, and others built their foundation on African knowledge and then enslaved ours when they turned our world upside down. Well, look, the world is changing. The world is upside down now. And if you think things are bad as we end 2025, they're going to be even worse in 2026, where the people who run this nation, many of whom profess to be Christians, who don't have a Christian inkling in their heart, cold hearts, use the Bible, use religion to manipulate the masses. And for those of you who are ready to be freed, the means are out here for you to free yourself. Don't buy into the game. Don't buy into the lies. Free yourself. So last week I had the opportunity to talk about my appearance on Akbar's show last Monday on the 15th. And I talked about Akbar was celebrating what would have been the 84th birthday of Maurice White on last Friday, the 19th of December. Maurice White was the founder and leader of Earth, Wind, and Fire, the baddest band in the land. And Kaba invited me on his show, and I talked about the history, the culture, the music, the message, and the metaphysics of Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I shared on the show and shared with you all last week the music, the message, and the metaphysics of Earth, Wind, and Fire's biggest hit, the title to their 1977 album. You hear that, Candy? 1977 was when that album came out. That's the Way of the World. The title song, the chorus of that song talks about these spiritual traditions. The chorus of that song is hearts of fire, create love desire to take you higher, higher to your place on the throne. Hearts of fire create love desire to take you higher, higher to the world you belong. And so that story, that song was a coded message to those with ears to hear about the chakras, the 7 energy centers in your body through which the God force, the power that has always resided in you, flows. And so the idea is to know that we as human beings were not born in sin, that the power of the Creator, the masculine and feminine, the mother father aspects of the Creator reside in us. And that if you understand that and follow certain means, you can activate that power and cause that energy to rise through your chakras from the root chakra to your crown chakra, the 7th chakra. And the gateway that really accelerates this growth is the 4th chakra, which is the heart chakra. And so it is the idea of love being the vessel, love being the vehicle that accentuates this power and elevates it and takes this energy higher and higher to your place on the throne where this God consciousness, this God is consciousness resides. So what this means, and I want you all to understand this clearly, metaphorically, what it means is that the power of the Creator is within you. What it means is that there is no heaven or hell in the religious sense of the word. Heaven and hell are states of mind, states of being. And you, as a creator, as a being who has a spark of the Creator within you, have the capacity to create heaven on earth. But if you lack that knowledge, if that knowledge has been withheld from you, then the absence of that knowledge, the absence of the ability to understand and utilize that knowledge properly will result in the misuse of that knowledge, the misuse of that power, which will result in you bringing hell to your very existence here on earth. That's information that people have known for thousands of years. That's information that has been withheld from millions of people all around the world. The church is in you. The temple is in you. So realize that your body is a sacred edifice. Realize and understand that there's certain things you should not put in your body. Realize that there's certain things that you should not say. There's certain things that you should not think. If you are aware of these realities, then you then will have the power, have the ability to express your creative self and manifest heaven and your place on the throne in heaven. And you will be able to bring that energy, that consciousness into your household. You'll be able to manifest it within your community and the organizations that you are part of. That's the real power. That's the real reason for the season. So if you understand the meaning of the solstice is the time where you should be still, like the sun is still. It is the time when you should be focusing your attention on prayer, focusing your attention on meditation, focusing your attention on analyzing the past year, what you did well and what you can do better. And make a commitment to yourself to be intentional about being better throughout the new year. That's your gift. That's a gift, that's an opportunity that's given to every person every single year. And it don't cost you nothing but your time. But we've been socialized, we've been manipulated, we've been hustled, we've been conned like the people of Oz to go out and spend your money on folk who don't like you, who hate you, to support an economy that has no interest in your well-being. So it's about you knowing yourself and it's about you acting on that knowledge. I have a Substack article that I encourage you all to Google, just Google my name on Substack. It's the article that delves deeper into the music, the message, the metaphysics of Earth, Wind, and Fire. It talks about that song, That's the Way of the World. It talks about some of their other music, talks about some of their other albums, and the messages that Saint Maurice White, encoded in his music. Why? Because, sometimes you can't just talk about these things in public because people won't believe you. So the information is embedded. The truth is embedded in music. The truth is embedded in certain movies. You have to have the ears to hear it. You have to have the eyes to see it. And then you have to have the mind to comprehend what you've heard and what you've seen. His brother Listerville Middleton encouraged us in his poem on the origin of things. Sharpen your eye and tune your ears so you know what you see and understand what you hear. And so I want to give you this gift that really will help you do you better It's a gift. It's something that has been a part of my world since 1975, when I first realized the message in this song. And it's a song by a group that one would not imagine would have produced a song of this deep significance. But what I've come to realize is that the words to this song were lifted from a book written at the turn of last century by a man by the name of James Allen. That book is called As a Man Thinketh. There are copies of this book written for women, As a Woman Thinketh. There are gender neutral copies called As a Person Thinketh. And it's a book that is based on Kemetic principles and concepts and ideas that were reinterpreted by an Englishman who understood the power that was embedded in these thoughts that originated among Africans in the Nile Valley. So this is my gift to you, because you all help me get over the hump and make my goal, because you all help WPFW get over the hump and make its goal. I want to give you this gift, and I want you all to listen to it. I want you all to internalize it. As a matter of fact, you can go online and Google Parliament's song or Funkadelic song, Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts. It's the last cut on side B, written by George Clinton. And, you know, I was blessed to find out where George Clinton got the lyrics from. Even though he didn't credit James Allen, I'm giving James Allen credit. I want you to listen to the words to this song, because this is a message that needs to be heard and heeded during this time of year. It says, travel like a king or queen. Listen to the inner voice. A higher wisdom is at work for you. Conquering stumbling blocks comes easier when the conqueror is in tune with the infinite. Every ending is a new beginning. Life is an endless unfoldment. Change your mind and you change your relationship to time. You can find the answer. The solution lies within the problem. The answer is in every question. An attitude is all you need to rise and walk away. Inspire yourself. Your life is yours. It fits you like your skin. The oak sleeps in the acorn. The giant sequoia tree sleeps in its tiny seed. The bird waits in the egg, and God, the creator, waits for his unfoldment in man, the mind. You gravitate to that which you secretly love most. You making life the exact reproduction of your own thoughts. There's no chance, coincidence, or accident in a universe ruled by law and divine order. You rise as high as your dominant aspiration. You descend to the level of your lowest perception of yourself. The infinite intelligence within you knows the answers, and its nature is to respond to your thoughts. So be careful of the thought seeds you plant in the garden of your mind, for seeds grow after their kind. Every thought felt as true, or allowed to be accepted as true by your conscious mind, takes root in your subconscious mind and blossoms sooner or later into an act. Let me repeat that, because it bears repeating. Every thought felt as true, or allowed to be accepted as true by your conscious mind, takes root in your subconscious mind and blossoms sooner or later into an act and bears its own fruit. Good thoughts bring forth good fruit. Bad thoughts rot your flesh. Think right and you can fly, for the kingdom of heaven is within. So the takeaways from good thoughts and bad thoughts are: the kingdom of heaven is within. It's here. Free your mind, free your dome. Understand that everything you do is predicated upon what you think and what you know. So if you think right, you can fly. Every thought felt is true, or allowed to be accepted as true by your conscious mind, takes root in your subconscious. And if you all remember the show I did a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Charles, the hypnotherapist, She talked about the power of the subconscious mind. Only 10% of what we do is done through our conscious mind. 90% of our functions, 90% of how we operate is controlled by our subconscious mind. Whoever controls the subconscious mind controls you. So there are ways that you can program your subconscious mind. Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Carter G. Woodson says that if you control a person's thinking, their thoughts, you don't have to worry about their actions. Dr. Woodson also says that truth comes to us from the past and then, like gold, washed down from the mountains. Truth is in the past, baby. And so what our oppressor had to do is to erase our perception of the past, erase our memory, and tell us that we were nothing. So it's our obligation, it's our responsibility to do as Arthur Schomburg said 100 years ago, to dig up the past. We must become the most enthusiastic antiquarian of them all, enthusiastic, in theo, filled with the Spirit of God. That's us. We have to be filled with the Spirit and the desire and the motivation to dig up our past, because everything that we need to know about who we are as a people is buried somewhere. It's buried in a book. It's buried on the ground. And once you're willing to be actively involved in freeing your mind, once you accept the position, either I'm free or I'm going to die. I'm going to die pursuing freedom. Once you develop that attitude and your subconscious sees that you are serious, then the ancestors will speak through you. The ancestors will flow through you because you've opened up the chakras to connect yourself to them. And they're on the other side waiting for you. Listen, my time is just about up. I've got 8 more minutes, but this is what I want you all to hear. This is what I want you all to understand. You all know that I've spent 45 years of my life traveling to the Nile Valley and excavating in Egypt. What I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, what I want to share with you right now is the knowledge of the Torah, the knowledge of the Bible, the knowledge of the Quran originated in the Nile Valley. And these Africans understood that there is no death, that heaven and hell are states of mind, and that it's through your consciousness that you can create heaven on earth. A lack of consciousness produces hell on earth. They understood that there is no death, that we come back, and that we've always come back, that we are our returning ancestors. We are the vessels through which the ancestors live, breathe, speak, and do their best work. So when you know that, then you will invest in yourself. You will invest in your mind. You will free your mind and be the best vessel possible for our ancestors to speak through, to work through, to make a better world for those who are coming behind us, our descendants. And ultimately, we will become our descendants when this cycle, this Rehime Mesu, repeats itself as it has done for all time. And so those who want to oppress you mentally and spiritually have suppressed this information. They know it and they talk about it behind closed doors. And believe me, I've had conversations with ministers. I've had conversations with theologians. I've had conversations and read about rabbis who know this information, who talk about it amongst themselves. But just like the wizard, just like Dorothy, just like the scarecrow, and the Tin Man and the lion, they keep this information hidden from the public. Well, I'm doing my due diligence. I'm letting you all know that I care for you. I'm letting you all know that I appreciate you. I'm letting you all know that my love for you is allowing me to share with you what I know, not what I think, not what I believe, because a belief is something you accept without proof. Knowledge cancels out belief. Know who you are. Act on that knowledge and be the best vessel possible for your ancestors to speak through and to work through. That is who you are. That is what you owe your ancestors. That is what you owe everyone who sacrificed for you to get anything that you have. That's what you owe to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, the knowledge that will free them. People can only oppress you when you are separated from your cultural consciousness. People can only oppress you when you are afraid of artificial intelligence because you lack the awareness of ancestral intelligence. You cannot oppress a culturally conscious people who know who they are, who are connected to the spirit of their ancestors, and are willing to do the work that the masculine and feminine sources of creation allowed us to live this life to do. That's it. That's the message. So tomorrow is the end of the solstice. Tomorrow is the day that represents the birth of the sun. So happy born day to you all. Tomorrow is the beginning of your life, the first day of the rest of your life. And so for those of you all who know me, I spend Christmas Day playing Freddie Hubbard's First Light. And I greet Kepre, the morning sun. Kepre, which represents the beginning of a new life and a new day. I acknowledge Ray at high noon, the creator on high, and the powers that are bestowed upon us who know what this whole relationship is about. I acknowledge our men at the end of the day, that unseen aspect of the creator that is always present, that has never left us behind. We've never been separated from our creator, and don't allow anybody to tell you that God separated you from her kingdom. That's madness. Grow up, folk. Dispense with the madness. Have the courage to be your authentic self. Embrace the world that has always been here, waiting for you, and live a real and authentic life. Be the creator that you were born to be. Create heaven on earth. Build something worth leaving behind so that when you're gone, someone will say, this is what you left for future generations. Leave a legacy. That's what this whole process is about. That's what living is about. And if you're too afraid to do it, too weak to do it, then you'll get it eventually. You only have the rest of your lives to get it together. And the sooner you accept your obligations and responsibilities, the better off you will be. So, you know what to do tomorrow for the day that represents the birth of the sun. Celebrate life, live life to the fullest. Join me next week on New Year's Eve, the 31st of December. You will be my guest. I will take calls, and I'll lay out my framework for how I'm going to take calls. Browder don't play. Those who know me know that Browder don't play. So we're going to do it right. I want to acknowledge you and give you an opportunity to share with us your year and how you're going to make your year better. So this is Tony Browder thanking you all. I'm glad I found my voice. Robin found her voice. They were in boxes like right down the hall. So we're back, and we're here to share with you what we love to share, and trust that you appreciate the spirit in which this message was imparted, and that the spirit empowers you for as long as you may live. So Cleo, take me out, man. Take me out with Maurice White, sharing the message that it's all about love. That's the only thing that matters at this point in your life. I'll see you all next week. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy New Year. And let's do it right in 2026.
Love you.